Hi, I'm Pam Thompson, and today I'll be reading a story by Amy Hempl, a contemporary author. She mostly wrote short stories, or writes short stories. She's an animal lover, and a lot of her work features animals. This story was the first one she ever wrote, and it was for her best friend who died of leukemia. In the Cemetery Where Al Jolson is Buried by Amy Hempl. Tell me things I won't mind forgetting, she said. Make it useless stuff or skip it. I began. I told her insects fly through the rain, missing every drop, never getting wet. I told her how no one in America owned a tape recorder before Bing Crosby did. I told her the shape of the moon is like a banana. You see it looking full, you're seeing it end on. The camera made me self-conscious, and I stopped. It was trained on us from a ceiling mount, the kind camera banks use to photograph robbers. It played us to the nurses down the hall in intensive care. Go on, girls, she said, you get used to it. I had my audience. I went on. Did she know that Tammy Wynette had changed her tune? Really, now she sings Stand By Your Friends. That Paul Anka did it too. I said, does having our baby, that he got sick of all that feminist bitching. What else, she said, have you got something else? Oh yes. For her, I would always have something else. Did you know that when they taught the first chimp to talk, it lied? That when they asked her who did it on the desk, she signed back the name of the janitor. And that when she was pressed, she said she was sorry, that it was really the project director. But she was a mother, so I guess she had her reasons. Oh, that's good, she said, a parable. There's more about the chimp, I said, but it'll break your heart. No thanks, she says, and scratches at her mask. We look like good guy outlaws. Good or bad, I am not used to the mask yet. I keep touching the warm spot where my breath, thank God, comes out. She is used to hers. She only ties the strings on the top. The other ones, a pro by now, she lets hang loose. We call this place the Marcus Welby Hospital. It's the white one with the palm trees under the opening credits of all those shows. A Hollywood hospital, though in fact it's several miles west. Off camera, there's a beach across the street. She introduces me to a nurse as the best friend. The impersonal article is more intimate. It tells me that they are intimate, the nurse and my friend. I was telling her we used to drink Canada Dry ginger ale and pretend we were in Canada. That's how dumb we were, I say. You could be sisters, the nurse says. So how come, I'll bet they're wondering, it took me so long to get to such a glamorous place. But do they ask? They do not. 2 months. And how long is the drive? The best I can explain it is this. I have a friend who worked one summer in a mortuary. He used to tell me stories. The ones that really got to me was not the grisliest, but it's the one that did. A man wrecked his car on 101 going south. He did not lose consciousness. But his arm was taken down to the wet bone, and when he looked at it, it scared him to death. I mean, he died. So I hadn't dared look any closer, but now I'm doing it, and hoping that I will live through it. She shakes out a summer weight blanket, showing a leg you did not want to see. Except for that, you look at her and understand the law that requires 2 people to be with the body at all times. I thought of something, she says. I thought of it last night. I think there is a real and present need here. You know, she says, like for someone to do it for you when you can't do it for yourself. You call them up whenever you want, like when push comes to shove. She grabs the bedside phone, loops the cord around her neck. Hey, she said, it's the end of the line. She keeps on, giddy with something, but I don't know with what. I can't remember, she said. What does Kubler-Ross say comes after denial? It seems to me anger must be next, then bargaining, depression, and so on and so forth. But I keep my guesses to myself. The only thing is, she says, is where's resurrection? God knows I want to do it by the book, but she left out resurrection. She laughs, and I cling to the sound the way someone dangling above a ravine holds fast to the thrown rope. Tell me, she says, about the chimp with the talking hands. What do they do when the thing ends and the chimp says, I don't want to go back to the zoo? When I don't say anything, she says, okay, then tell me another animal story. I like animal stories, but not the sick ones. I don't want to know about the seeing-eye dog that goes blind. No, I would not tell her a sick one. How about the hearing-ear dog, I say. They're not going deaf, but they're getting very judgmental. For instance, there's this golden retriever in New Jersey. He wakes up the deaf mother, drags her into the daughter's room because the kid has got a flashlight and is reading under the covers. Oh, you're killing me, she says. Yes, you are definitely killing me. They say smart dogs obey, but the smarter dog knows when to disobey. Yes, she said, the smarter anything knows when to disobey. Now, for example, she's flirting with the good doctor who has just appeared. Unlike the bad doctor who checks the IV before saying good morning, the good doctor says things like, God didn't give epileptics a fair shake. The good doctor awards himself points for the cripples he could have hit in the parking lot. Because the good doctor is a little in love with her, he says, maybe a year. He pulls out a chair up to her bed and suggests I might like to spend an hour at the beach. Bring me something back, she says. Anything from the beach or the gift shop. Taste is no object. He draws the curtain around her bed. Wait, she cries. I look at her. Anything, she says, except a magazine subscription. The doctor turns away. I watch her mouth laugh. What seems dangerous often is not. Black snakes, for example, or clear air turbulence. While things that just lie there, like the beach, are loaded with jeopardy. A yellow dust rising from the ground, the heat that ripens melons overnight. This is earthquake weather. You can sit here braiding the fringe on your towel, and the sand will all of a sudden suck down like an hourglass. The air roars. In the cheap apartments on shore, bathtubs fill themselves and gardens roll up and over like green waves. If nothing happens, the dust will drift and the heat deepens till fear turns to desire. Nerves like that are only brought off by catastrophe. It never happens when you're thinking about it, she once observed. Earthquake, earthquake, earthquake. Earthquake, 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 I said. Like the aviaphobe who keeps the plane aloft with prayer, we kept it up until the aftershock cracked the ceiling. That was after the big one in '72. We were in college. Our dormitory was 5 miles from the epicenter. When the ride was over and my jabbering pulse began to slow, she served 5 parts champagne and 1 part orange juice and joked about living in Ocean View, Kansas. I offered to drive her to Hawaii on the New World, like it's predicted would surface at the next time or the next. I could not say that now. Next. Who's next, she would ask. Was I the only one who noticed that experts had stopped saying if and now and spoke of when? Of course not, the fearful run to the thousands. We watched traffic of Japanese beetles for deviation. Deviation might mean more natural violence. I wanted her to be afraid with me, but she said, I don't know, I'm just not. She was afraid of nothing, not even flying. I have this dream before a flight where we buckle up and the plane moves down the runway. It takes off at 35 miles an hour, and then we're airborne, skimming the treetops. Still, we arrive in New York on time. It is so pleasant. One night I flew to Moscow that way. She flew with me once. That time she flew with me, she ate macadamia nuts while the wings bounced. She knows that wingtips can bounce 30 feet up and 30 feet down without coming off. She believes it. She trusts the laws of aerodynamics. My mind stampedes. I can almost accept that a battleship floats when everyone knows steel sinks. I see fear in her now, and I am not going to try to talk her out of it. She's right to be afraid. After a quake, the 6 o'clock news airs a film clip of first graders yelling at the broken pavement on the playground per their teacher's instructions. Bad earth, they shout, because anger is stronger than fear. But the beach is standing still today. Everyone on it is tranquilized, numb, or asleep. Teenage girls rub coconut oil on each other's hard-to-reach places. They smell like macaroons. They pry open compacts like clamshells. Mirrors catch the sun and throw a spray of white rays across glazed shoulders. The girls arrange their wet hair with silk flowers the way they learned in 17. They pose. A formation of low riders pull over to watch with a six-pack. They get vocal when the girls check their tan lines. When the beer is gone, so are they, flexing their cars up onto the boulevard. Above this aggressive health are the twin wrought iron terraces painted flamingo pink of the Palm Royale. Someone dies there every time the sheets are changed. There's an ambulance in the driveway, so the remaining residents line the balconies, rocking and talking, one-upped. The ocean they stare at is dangerous, and not just the undertow. You can almost see the flapping tails of sand sharks keeping cruising bodies alive. If she looked, she could see this, some of it from her window. She would be the first to say how little it takes to make a thing go all wrong. There was a second bed in the room when I got back. For 2 beats, I didn't get it. Then it hit me like an open coffin. She wants every minute. I thought she wants my life. You missed Gussie, she said. Gussie is her parents' 300-pound narcoleptic maid. Her attacks often come at the ironing board. The pillowcases in that family are all bordered with scorch. It's a hard trip for her, I said. How is she? Well, she didn't fall asleep, if that's what you mean. Gussie's great. You know what she said? She said, darling, stop this worryation. Just keep praying, down on your knees. Me, who can't even get out of bed. She shrugged. What am I missing? It's earthquake weather, I told her. The best thing to do about earthquakes, she said, is to not live in California. That's useful, I said. You sound like Reverend Ike. The best thing to do for the poor is not to be one of them. We're crazy about Reverend Ike. I noticed her face was bloated. You know, she said, I feel like hell. I'm about to stop having fun. The ancients have a saying, I said, There are times when the wolves are silent. There are times when the moon howls. What's that, Navajo? Palm Royale lobby graffiti, I said. I bought a paper there, I'll read you something. Even though I care about nothing. I turned to the page with the trivia column. I said, did you know that the more shrimp flamingo birds eat, the pinker their feathers get? Did you know that Eskimos need refrigerators? Do you know why Eskimos need refrigerators? Did you know that Eskimos need refrigerators because how else would they keep their food from freezing? I turned to page 3, to UPI filler, Dateline, Mexico City. I read her, man robs bank with chicken, about a man who bought a barbecued chicken at a stand down the block from a bank. Passing the bank, he got the idea. He walked in and approached a teller. He pointed the brown bag at her, and she handed over the day's receipts. It was the smell of barbecue sauce that eventually led to his capture. The story had made her hungry, she said, so I took the elevator down 6 floors to the cafeteria and brought back all the ice cream she wanted. We lay side by side, adjustable beds cranked up for optimal TV watching, littering the sheets with good humor wrappers, picking toasted almonds out of gauze. We were Lucy and Ethel, Mary and Rhoda in extremis. The blinds were closed to keep the light off the screen. We watched a movie starring men we used to think we wanted to sleep with. Hers was a tough cop, out to stop mine, a vicious rapist who went after cocktail waitresses. This is a good movie, she said when the snipers felled them both. I missed her already. A Filipino nurse tiptoed in and gave her an injection. The nurse removed the pile of popsicle sticks from the nightstand, enough to splint a small animal. The injection made us both sleepy. We slept. I dreamed she was a decorator come to furnish my house. She worked in secret, singing to herself. When she finished, she guided me proudly to the door. How do you like it, she asked, easing me inside. Every beam and sill and shelf and knob was draped in gay bunting with streamers of pastel crepe looped around bright mirrors. I have to go home, I said when she woke up. She thought I meant home to her house in Canyon, and I had to say, no, home, home. I twisted my hands in the time-honored fashion of people in pain. I was supposed to offer something, the best friend. I could not even offer to come back. I felt weak and small and failed, also exhilarated. I had a convertible in the parking lot. Once out of that room, I would drive so fast down the coast highway through crab-smelling air. A stop in Malibu for sangria. The music in the place would be sexy and loud. They'd serve papaya and shrimp and watermelon ice. After dinner, I would shimmer with lust, buzz with heat, light, and stay up all night. Without a word, she yanked off the mask and threw it on the floor. She kicked at the blankets and moved to the door. She must have hated having to pause for breath and balance before slamming out of isolation and out of the second room where you put on scrubs and tie on white masks. A voice shouted her name in alarm and people ran down the corridor. The doctor was paged over the intercom. I opened the door and the nurses at the station stared hard, as if the flight had been my idea. Where is she, I asked, and they nodded to the supply closet. I looked in. 2 nurses were kneeling beside her on the floor, talking to her in low voices. One held a mask over her nose and mouth. The other rubbed her back in slow circles. The nurses glanced up to see if I was the doctor, and when I wasn't, they went back to what they were doing. There, honey, they cooed. On the morning she was moved to the cemetery, the one where Al Jolson is buried, I enrolled in a fear of flying class. "What is your worst fear?" the instructor asked, and I answered that I would finish this course and still be afraid. I sleep with a glass of water on the nightstand so I can see by its level if the coastal earth is trembling or if the shaking is still me. What do I remember? I remember only the useless things I hear, that Bob Dylan's mother invented whiteout, that 23 people must be in a room before there's a 50-50 chance that 2 will have the same birthday. Who cares whether it's true or not? In my head, there are bath towels swaddling this stuff. Nothing else seeps through. I review the things that will figure in the retelling. A kiss through the surgical gauze, the pale hand correcting the position of the wig. I noted these gestures as they happened, not in any retrospect. I don't know why looking back should show us any more than looking at. It is just possible I will say I stayed the night. And who is there that can say that I did not? I think of the chimp, the one with the talking hands. In the course of the experiment, the chimp had a baby. Imagine how her trainers must have thrilled when the mother, without prompting, began to sign to her newborn. "Baby, drink milk. Baby, play ball." And when the baby died, the mother stood over the body, her wrinkled hands moving with animal grace, forming again and again the words, "Baby, come hug. Baby, come hug," fluent now in the language of grief.